Counter-terrorism organisation is here. David, thank you very much for coming in. Let's talk first about the use of social media, because as we've seen, it can send out the most horrific images incredibly fast. What do you think the social media companies are doing? Is it enough?
Well, this is going to be a real test of how effective social media companies have been. How long did it take them from learning that the live streaming of the attack was going on to ending it? How long did it take them to take down reposts of that material? And I think there's going to need to be a great audit of how effective that process has been. Because
the man who's been identified as the gunman, an Australian, was clearly making full use of social media even while the attack was going on. And of course he's published this document which he's called a manifesto, this document which contains all sorts of extremist views, and you've been looking into that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's important to realise that the reason he carried out the attack was twofold. First of all, to kill as many invaders as he saw them as possible, and secondly, to promulgate these ideas. And I'm very happy to tell you what the main strands of those ideas are.
Please do.
They really fall into three categories. First of all, there is a conspiracy theory at the very heart of what he says, and it's called the Great Replacement. This is an idea that was brought to prominence by a French polemicist called Camus, and the theory is that capitalists, European elites, are replacing the European white population of Europe in order to fund economic expansion. So that's one big part of that, and that really is the main idea underpinning it. But there are other parts of conspiracist far-right neo-Nazi thinking that go into his manifesto, and one of them is neo-Nazism. On the front cover of the document, and indeed on the bag he carried, there is a thing called the Black Sun, which was developed by Himmler and is a mosaic on the floor of the SS headquarters in Germany. And so there's an obvious and direct neo-Nazi link there. And then finally, all the way through his manifesto, written on the guns, there are records of essentially Muslim European battles stretching from the 8th century through to the Bosnian conflict. And he sees himself as forming part of that great sort of train of resistance against Muslim invasions to Europe.
Building a justification in his mind for what he appears to have carried out today.
Correct.
And then there's this idea of the 14 words as well, which appear?
Yes, the 14 words are a extremely well-known and very common meme that you find throughout neo-Nazism. It starts with a neo-Nazi group called the Order, and there are very few neo-Nazi groups which do not reference the 14 words. He wrote the 14 words, the 14 words on his gun, and he twice references them in the manifesto.
If you go onto social media, and you don't have to go onto the dark web to find it, this stuff's readily available.
It is, and it's a matter of huge concern because you fall into a sort of rabbit hole. When you watch one theory or one video putting forward the idea of the Great Replacement or the Muslim or foreign invasion of Europe, you will be shown video after video after video. All you have to do is to see 3 or 4 of them, and YouTube will recommend hundreds of other videos with exactly the same message, and you will very rarely come across a counter-narrative which says, this is rubbish, it's not true, here's the other argument.
How do you challenge these ideas then?
Well, I mean, that's a very difficult thing to do. I think it's very important that, first of all, people do create content debunking and taking these ideas to pieces, and secondly, that the social media companies do what they really ought to do responsibly, which is to promote them in answer to these sorts of incitements.
Your organisation focuses on countering extremism of all sorts.
Correct.
What part does education play in that?
Well, education plays a very important part, but I think it's important that that education reaches vulnerable people through the same routes that disinformation reaches them. And that's why rebutting these arguments on YouTube through videos is so important. And it's vital that people make videos and put out material which explains why it's simply not true.
What's the proportion, though, of the extremism and the counter-extremism?
The extremism at the moment really has the day. There's considerably more extremist material on YouTube and on social media than anti-extremist material.
How do we avoid regulation of social media companies if they're not going to do it themselves?
Well, Yeah,
is it inevitable?
I think it's inevitable if social media companies don't step up to the plate and really take the action themselves, because there will be irresistible pressure for legislation by government. That I don't think is ideal. Social media companies are private companies, and really there is a reputational risk to them when they become associated with the promulgation of these very dangerous ideas.
How delicate a balance, though, is it in getting that right and not stifling free speech?
But the best answer to bad speech is more speech, and that's why it's so important that rebutting these ideas takes a priority.
David Toube, Director of Policy for Quilliam, thank you very much. Thank you.